What's up, fellow connoisseurs of fiction? It's me, Full0Grace, and today I'm going to be giving an overview of the book Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Before we begin, let's quickly go over some of the characters we'll see. As always, we begin with the namesake of the book, Percy Jackson. This 12-year-old has shaggy black hair and seaweed green eyes. Percy is a demigod, and his godly parent is Poseidon. Because of this, Percy can control water. Water can also heal him and make him stronger. Like most demigods, Percy is dyslexic and has ADHD. Percy's best friend and protector is the satyr Grover Underwood. His curly brown hair barely hides his horns. He has brown eyes and the beginnings of a wispy goatee. The brain of the group is Annabeth Chase. She's also 12, with honey blonde hair and silver eyes. Annabeth has a Yankees cap that makes her invisible, a gift from her mother, Athena. She also wields a dagger that was given to her by her crush, Luke. Chiron, aka Mr. Brunner, is an immortal centaur who has dedicated his life to training heroes. From the waist up, he looks to be middle-aged with thinning brown hair, a scruffy beard, and brown eyes. From the waist down, he's a white stallion. When he wants to blend in, Chiron uses a magic wheelchair to hide his lower half, giving the illusion that he's a normal human. Percy's mother, Sally Jackson, is an amazing woman. She has graying black hair and is said to have shifting colored eyes. Sally is kind, patient, and is known for making a legendary 7-layer dip. Sally's husband and Percy's stepfather, Gabe Ugliano, nicknamed Smelly Gabe, is the absolute worst. He's overweight, practically bald, smells foul, drinks too much, and gambles away Percy's money. It's also hinted that he's hit Sally at least once. Again, he's the worst. 19-year-old Luke Stellen is the son of Hermes. He has sandy blonde hair, shifty blue eyes, and a thick pale scar that runs from the bottom of his eye down to his chin. There's also Clarisse LaRue, daughter of Ares. She's a bully that has it out for Percy. Some other important names are Hephaestus, Hades, Zeus, and Mr. D, aka Dionysus. Some less important names are the Furies, the Minotaur, Medusa, Chimera, Echidna, Procrustes, Charon, and Cerberus. With that taken care of, let's get on to the actual book. We start off with Percy and Grover on a field trip led by Mr. Brunner and Mrs. Dodds. An annoying girl is picking on Grover and pushing Percy's buttons, and Grover tries to keep him from doing anything stupid. Unfortunately, Percy loses his temper and, without even realizing it, uses his powers. Mrs. Dodds immediately steps in and separates him from the rest of the class. That's when we learn that Mrs. Dodds is one of the Furies, a hideous bat-like creature. As Percy avoids her attacks, Mr. Brunner suddenly appears out of nowhere and tosses him a pen that turns into a sword in midair. Percy uses the weapon to cut his math teacher in half, and she dissolves into sand. Confused, Percy finds himself alone holding a pen. Time skip to the end of the school year. Grover tries to keep an eye on Percy, but accidentally freaks him out. So Percy ditches his unknown protector and goes home to Queens, New York. There we meet Sally and Smelly Gabe. Percy is thrilled to hear that his mother has made plans for just the two of them to go to a cabin by the water. Gabe isn't happy they'll be borrowing his car. At first, the trip goes fine, but mother and son are awoken in the middle of the night by a hurricane and a pounding fist on the cabin door. Grover has found them, and he isn't wearing any pants or his fake feet, revealing that he is in fact a satyr. Percy doesn't know what to think, and the fact that his mom isn't surprised doesn't help. Realizing they're all in danger, they all pile into the car, and Sally makes a beeline for a special camp that Percy's father wanted his son to attend. Lightning blasts them off the road, resulting in Sally and Percy dragging an unconscious Grover while the Minotaur pursues them. At the camp borderline, the monster grabs Mrs. Jackson and she dissolves into nothing. Percy attacks the beast and defeats it before dragging Grover to the big house, where he promptly passes out. 2 days later, Percy wakes to find that he made it to Camp Half-Blood. He learns that Mr. Brunner is Chiron. He also meets Mr. D. They explain that the Greek gods are real and that his father is one of them. Unfortunately, they don't know which one, so he'll stay at Cabin 11, Hermes' cabin, until they find out. Since Hermes is the god of travel, any undetermined demigod is welcome at Cabin 11. Chiron introduces Annabeth, and she shows Percy around. Clarisse interrupts the tour and tries to give Percy a swirly in one of the toilets, but Percy commands the plumbing and blasts Clarisse with the toilet water. This earns Percy some respect and an enemy. At Cabin 11, we meet Luke, who's nice, but he doesn't like his father Hermes that much. While hanging out with Grover, Percy learns that the big three, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, promised on the river Styx never to have any more demigod children. A week later, Percy participates in his first game of Capture the Flag. Since the Ares cabin hates Percy, they use him as bait to draw Clarisse out, and she falls for it. In the fight, Percy is knocked into a pond, where he suddenly can fight well. Percy beats Clarisse, and Luke captures the flag. But suddenly, a hellhound attacks Percy, who is injured before Chiron kills it. As the pond water heals his wounds, a glowing trident appears over Percy's head. He's been claimed as the son of Poseidon. Percy moves into his own cabin, and he hates it. Everyone is cautious of him. Only Luke will train with him, and Annabeth still teaches him how to read Greek. A couple of days later, Percy finds a newspaper on his bed. Gabe's badly beaten-up car has been found. He and his mother are considered missing, and Gabe is pointing the finger at Percy. The next day, Percy is called to the big house. It turns out Zeus and Poseidon have been fighting because someone stole Zeus's master bolt, and he thinks Poseidon had Percy do it. Zeus wants his lightning bolt back by the summer solstice, and Poseidon demands an apology by the same date. Percy is given the quest of retrieving the master bolt and returning it to Olympus in 10 days. As with every quest, Percy receives a prophecy from the oracle. You shall go west and face the god who has turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You will be betrayed by one who calls you a friend, and you shall fail to save what matters most in the end. Chiron suspects that Hades stole the master bolt. After all, no one else has the power to command the Furies, and hellhounds come from Hades' domain. The entrance to the underworld is in LA, but they can't travel by air since that's Zeus's domain. Annabeth volunteers to help them on their quest, and Luke offers Percy a pair of flying shoes, but Percy gives them to Grover. Chiron gives Percy Riptide, the pen that can turn into a sword, and no matter what happens, the pen will always return to Percy's pocket. They're given supplies and dropped off at a bus stop. As they take their seats on the bus, the three Furies get on and take seats at the front. Things get complicated. Percy crashes the bus, and the vehicle explodes with Mrs. Dodds and their supplies still inside. After wandering down the highway for a while, they come upon Auntie M's Garden of Emporium. They go in and learn that M should be M, and that stands for Medusa. They kill her and get her head as a souvenir. In a moment of anger, Percy mails the head to Olympus. They find the address to the underworld in Medusa's address book. That night, Percy learns that Grover wants to get a searcher's license, so he can search for the lost god Pan. Percy decides to support him, even after learning that no searcher has ever returned. The next morning, they get money and directions from a pink poodle. They spend the next 2 days on a train heading west. The whole time, Percy tries to keep a low profile, since his photo is in the newspapers. 12-year-old Percy Jackson, wanted for questioning in the Long Island disappearance of his mother 2 weeks ago, is shown here fleeing from the bus stop where he accosted several elderly female passengers. The bus exploded on an East New Jersey roadside shortly after Jackson fled the scene. Based on eyewitness accounts, police believe the boy may be traveling with 2 teenage accomplices. The stepfather, Gabe Bugliano, has offered a cash reward for any information leading to his capture. Annabeth is obsessed with architecture and insists on stopping to ride to the top of the arch. That's where Percy faces the mother of monsters, Echidna, and her chimera. In the end, Percy jumps through a blast hole in the arch and lands in the water far below. Once he realizes that he's not dead, Percy notices that he can breathe underwater. While in the Mississippi River, Percy receives a message that Poseidon wants him to go to the beach in Santa Monica. Percy and his friends rush back to the train and stay until they arrive in Denver the next day. They stop at a diner and meet Ares, who reminds Percy of Gabe. The god buys them food and gives them a side quest. If they retrieve his shield from an amusement park, he'll arrange for safe transport and give them info on Sally. It turns out to be a trap set by Hephaestus. They give Ares his shield, he gives them a backpack of supplies, and the news that Sally is alive. Before they ask questions, they notice their ride to Vegas is preparing to leave, so they bolt. In Vegas, they stumble upon the Lotus Hotel and Casino. They enter the building and fall under its spell, but Percy realizes that there are people there from the year 1977 that still look like kids. Panicked, Percy grabs Annabeth and Grover, and they leave. They hunt down a newspaper, and while they are relieved that it's still the same year, they are horrified that they've lost 5 days. They only have 1 day left to complete the quest. In a taxi going to LA, the group goes over everything they've learned so far and wonder if maybe Hades isn't the bad guy. At the Santa Monica beach, Percy meets a Nereid and receives 3 magical pearls. Percy is disgusted to learn that Smelly Gabe has been playing the victim card for the cameras. In an interview, he accuses Percy of taking everything he's ever cared about, his wife and his Camaro. After a run-in with Procrustes, the trio finally find the entrance to the underworld. They bribe Charon into taking them across the river Styx. Annabeth makes friends with Cerberus, and with that, they make their way into Hades' palace. Or at least they try to. Grover's flying shoes come to life and try to take our precious satyr into the depths of Tartarus. Thankfully, his fake feet pop off, just before going over the edge. Weak and tired, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover make their way through Hades' palace. Percy asks the Lord of the Underworld to give him the Master Bolt so they can prevent a huge war that could destroy the world. The god of death is furious because his helm of invisibility was also stolen, and he thinks Percy came to taunt him on Poseidon's behalf. They try to reason with him, but their excuses fall flat when they find the Master Bolt in the backpack that Ares gave them. Hades reveals that he has Sally. Percy has to choose whether to give Hades the backpack and be damned, or use the 3 pearls to escape and leave one of them behind. Throughout the trip, Percy has worried which of his friends will betray him as the prophecy foretold, but his fears are put to rest as Grover and Annabeth argue over which of them should stay. In the end, Percy uses the 3 pearls on Annabeth, Grover, and himself, leaving his mother in the underworld. They pop up in the ocean and are picked up by the Coast Guard. They realize who's been behind this all along, and speak of the devil, there's Ares on the beach. You've got to die in the underworld. Then old Seaweed will be mad at Hades for killing you. Corpse Breath will have Zeus's Master Bolt, so Zeus will be mad at him, and Hades is still looking for this. Ares reveals the lost Helm of Darkness. Hades will be mad with both Zeus and Poseidon because he doesn't know who took this. Pretty soon we got a nice little 3-way slugfest going. As the god of war, Hades is thrilled at the thought of the bloody war this will create. But as the god keeps talking, Percy notices that something isn't right. It's as if someone has fed Ares the words he's saying. Someone is using the god of war. Percy challenges Ares, and the god accepts. It's a close fight, but Percy wins. Ares honors their agreement and leaves the helm. The Furies retrieve their master's symbol of power. They saw the whole thing and plan to tell Hades. The mortals decide that Ares was a kidnapper, and Percy and his friends were his victims. The earlier incidents must have been caused by either the kidnapper or one of the kids trying to escape. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover play along. In a desperate attempt to get the bolt to New York in time, the trio take a plane. Once they land, the group splits up. Annabeth and Grover return to camp to tell Chiron about what happened. Percy rushes to Olympus, on top of the Empire State Building. There he finds Zeus and Poseidon. Percy returns the bolt to his uncle and explains what happened. Zeus leaves father and son alone, and they talk. Poseidon reveals that Sally is safe, back at home. In a daze, Percy returns home and finds his mother there. She can't remember anything after the Minotaur. She was shocked when Smelly Gabe told her that Percy was a wanted fugitive. She hadn't heard the news since Gabe made her go into work because, according to him, she had a month's worth of salary to make up. Once Gabe realizes that Percy is home, he threatens to call the cops. In the end, Gabe gives Percy 5 minutes to grab his stuff and get out. In his room, Percy finds the packaged head of Medusa sitting on his bed. Percy leaves, but he tells his mom that if she ever wants to be done with Gabe, use what's in the box. Back at Camp Half-Blood, there's a big party, and Percy realizes that even though he's the son of one of the big 3, he's found a place where he can belong. On the 4th of July, Grover says goodbye to his friends. He's going on his search for Pan. In the back of his mind, Percy keeps running the prophecy through his head. Something tells him his quest isn't quite done. On the last day of summer, Percy finds Luke practicing with his new sword, Backbiter. They go into the forest to fight some monsters, and Luke starts complaining about his life as a demigod. He tells Percy he's planning on leaving. Just as Percy begins to suspect that something's wrong, Luke summons the Black Scorpion with a snap of his fingers. The last line of the prophecy has come true. If you want to know what happens next to Percy, is Sally uses the head of Medusa on Gabe, and who was the real bad guy in this story all along, then I highly recommend you read the book Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. In fact, go ahead and read the whole series written by Rick Riordan. Anyway, I'm Full0Grace, and I'll see you all next time.